What's up, y'all boys? It's Bugs. Welcome back to the channel. And today I'm gonna be yapping and just generally rambling about Spider-Man, specifically Across the Spider-Verse, but really just in general, the Spider-Verse franchise, a series of movies. I'm gonna be just letting myself talk about all different kinds of aspects of the movies, both movies. And I'm also probably going to be scrolling through this Reddit, the Into the Spider-Verse Reddit, r/Into the Spider-Verse, just so I can get my thoughts and opinions out and down about the film. So yeah, man, let's get to it. Graffiti highlights from Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, I really enjoy all these shots, actually. Miles really is a really good artist. Like, they took that concept from the first part of the first movie. So you know how in the first part of Into the Spider-Verse, you got the opening scene where we see Miles for the first time and he's listening to Sunflower and he's drawing in his notebook. And then, you know, he's slapping stickers around the place and stuff because he's a graffiti artist. And he gets that from his Uncle Aaron. I like how they continue it in Across. It's good character development. It's a nice visual medium. And of course, you know, this man, he fiending for a particular someone. Because out of everybody that he draws, like on this mural, for example, somebody is a reoccurring face far more frequently than the others. Has she forgiven George fully yet? So this one's talking about when Gwen had her reconciliation scene with her father. This guy wants to know if they actually on like good terms again, or like fully back to normal. I mean, when a secret like your daughter is Spider-Man gets out, it fundamentally changes the relationship. So it's not gonna be the way it was, but I do think that they're on the fast track back to the way they were. Like, they'll be all right. That was a feel-good scene. You seen the smiles. Which version of Across the Spider-Verse do you prefer, the theatrical version or the digital? Personally, the theatrical version, easily. I hate the fact that they had put those cuts out. So when this movie had originally hit theaters, there were multiple versions flying around. I guess it's because they couldn't commit to one of the two versions, or however many versions. It might have been 2 or 3, but one of the many versions they sent off the theaters to be like the finalized product. So when you go into the movie theater to watch it, there are like a couple of key distinct differences. For me personally, when I went to the movie theater, I saw the version of the movie where like the 4 main differences were when Miguel calls for backup, Lila puts out a fist bump instead of taking a picture on her phone. That's 1. Then 2, um the destruction and rubble scene with Gwen, when he saves Inspector Singh, she was panicking like way more too. Then 3, the train sequence when Miles blasts Miguel off of him down the train. There's a line of dialogue that Miles had said that's not in the digital version. And then I think the last one, what is the last one? The ending sequence when Earth 42 Miles reveals himself. His like the way they draw his face with like the highlights and like the lines, like the black lines and stuff. A bunch of that stuff looked different. Those like the 4 primary changes. I bet there's a billion other smaller changes that I just don't remember, couldn't see or whatever, but personally I like the theatrical version, specifically for the middle 2 reasons that I said. The Miles dialogue and the Gwen dialogue. Because those actually added to the movie, and I feel like the digital version cutting them out was kind of rough, but it's whatever. You scroll back up real quick because I saw. Why can Miles hear and see the future? I mean, it's probably just a creative decision for his spider sense, because usually that's how it gets showcased. So in this picture, the top picture is Into the Spider-Verse right before he enters the fray with the Spider-Man versus Goblin fight, and that's his spider sense kicking in for like the first time. And then the bottom scene, it's a full-blown vision of what happened or what's gonna happen after Spot gets his power up from the collider. But if you actually watch the movie, right before that kicks in, his spider sense goes off again. So it's honestly probably just a byproduct of his spider sense. Generally in the Spider-Verse movies, there's some interesting and kind of wonky stuff going on with the spider sense. Like for example, in Across the Spider-Verse, and honestly, even in Into the Spider-Verse, Gwen, she is capable of sensing things like across dimensions or just stuff like that. Like in the first movie, she says that her spider sense told her to go to Vision's Academy, and she didn't even know why until she met Miles, and that was a week prior. Then in Across the Spider-Verse, she's capable of sensing the fact that Miles is in the wrong universe, even though he's literally not even within the confines of the universe that she's in. Shit like that. So it's probably just an artistic choice or like a creative decision, because the spider sense in general is, I don't want to call it an ass pull of a superpower, but it's pretty wonky and arguably inconsistent. Like generally it's just capable of a lot of stuff. Like the spider sense is even capable of detecting, like telling Peter or telling a particular Spider-Man when their secret identity is about to get revealed. Like if a long-range photographer is spying on them and is in shot or in view to get a camera shot that would expose Spider-Man's identity. That's from the comics. That's a long shot from the comics. But and typically some of the adaptations don't always cover that. Like the movies have a habit of forgetting that spider sense exists sometimes, but generally the spider sense is pretty wonky, and it's just a tiny bit of an ass pull superpower. So that's probably what this is. He could probably see the future specifically because they're attributing it to spider sense. Do you think we'll see Gwenpool and Beyond the Spider-Verse, as it is another Gwen Stacy variant that Christopher Miller confirmed that it'll include mini Gwens? Oh man, who's gonna tell him? Who's gonna let Buddy know? Nah, but on a serious note, this is a common misunderstanding. That is not Gwen Stacy, y'all. I even thought that at first. My very first time seeing Gwenpool, I thought that was Gwen Stacy as well. But yeah, who's gonna tell him? Here's why I believe Miguel doesn't know what happens when you break canon events. Okay, there's a leak. Oh, excuse me, not a link. Okay. Picture. Let's read this. I believe that all the stuff he tells about what happens to him is just a lie. First, he looked for Peter's support when telling the story because Miguel knew Miles would listen to him and would believe him. And another thing that makes me think this was a lie, it's moments after Miles escapes. Miguel and Gwen argue, and then Gwen said something interesting and odd. Do you know for certain what happens if he breaks the canon? And Miguel gives an even more strange answer. Do you want to find out? I mean, Miguel literally told Miles he already broke the canon once because of so. I bet some of these comments are probably not debunking this guy, but just giving him explanation. I'll give a bit of my own just based off what I remember from the movie. So when Miguel was telling his backstory to Miles, and you know, he says that he broke it once himself, when he mentions Peter, he doesn't necessarily mention Peter to try to convince Miles that he's telling the truth. I mean, you could argue that there's a small part of that involved, sure. But really what I'm focusing on when he has his backstory is that we can see in like the hologram depiction of the background and like the scenery that was around them for that given universe, that at the very least, when everything started going to shit and the universe started crumbling and unraveling around them, that Miguel was calling in the Spider Society to try to fix things, and Peter was there when the universe started to obliterate itself. That's the part that he was referencing. And I think that's the part that makes it important to consider what Miguel is actually saying. Because essentially what he's saying is that when canon events are broken and the multiverse gets destabilized, and then there's a possibility of the loss of the entire Spider-Verse, and then he references his canon event breaking incident, he's insinuating that if a canon event gets broken, then it can destroy the entire universe. And if it destroys the universe, then it can also set off a chain reaction or a domino effect and just start obliterating the rest of the multiverse. So when Miguel confronts Gwen, and to be fair, he was very, very angry. I mean, the man was riled up, essentially in the chase of his life, to try to catch this man Miles, because he thinks Miles is about to do something that might obliterate the rest of the multiverse. But regardless, when he presses Gwen like that, especially given the fact that he's amped up, he's basically trying to levy, because also the other thing is, like, partially why did Gwen ask the question? Because you've been part of the society for 4 months and you've had the explainer towards you about how canon events work. So he's kind of leveraging the fact that you should already know that the universe itself will more likely than not collapse in on itself, sort of thing. Let me see what some of these other guys got to say about it. All right. That's okay. Miguel did something completely different than how Miles broke canon. He replaced himself in a different universe, lived there, and his continued existence as an anomaly in that universe caused it to break down, resulting in its destruction. We see objects, people foreign to a universe begin to break down after continued unprotected exposure in that universe, almost like they're being attacked by cosmic anti. Yup, yes sir. This guy, me and him are on the same wavelength. I actually really like this human body analogy. I've been using it to explain stuff to a couple of my homeboys. But what if Miguel's continued existence while protected against the universe's antibodies caused it to break down in an effort to get rid of the foreign body? I know it doesn't work when considering the other spider people staying in Miguel's dimension, but I assume they have to go home from time to time and don't just live there for years on end. What Miles is trying to do is change the series of events in his own universe as a free agent of his universe, not replace and exist in a new universe entirely. Though I doubt Miguel is being 100% malicious about canon events, he just saw what happened to him and jumped to the conclusion that it would happen whenever, or presumably wherever, you mess with a universe's series of events. The only difference is the event he changed was his own death in that universe. Miguel could not have lived there for more than 16 months, and that's if he went straight there at the end of Into the Spider-Verse. More likely, it was only a few months. Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, the whole antibodies thing, I really like that analogy. I had actually came up with that essentially on my own to explain to a couple of my homeboys how I think the canon event thing is working, or like the destruction of the universe thing. So generally speaking, we see in Into the Spider-Verse, I mean, to put it simply, the entire basis of the plot of that first movie is Kingpin and company have created a multiverse destabilizing super collider for the sake of him trying to get his family back. And part of the conflict behind why that movie even happens is how difficult it is for them to get the collider to work in a way that lets them more safely and more securely bring over entities like other people from across the multiverse. Kingpin's trying to bring back his wife and kid. Of course, we find out in Across the Spider-Verse that they run a test to bring over a spider. In general though, like we saw in the first movie, it's very hard to do so. It was very unstable. It was running the risk of having universes just clash and collide into each other and probably just obliterate everything. Spider-Man himself in the movie, he says that this collider could rip open a black hole inside of New York. Shit like that, right? So the entire plot of the first movie is focusing on the fact that in the grand scheme of things, the multiverse is not supposed to be self-interactive. Like the respective universes that reside in the multiverse are not really supposed to be interacting with each other. And the first movie is kind of just a happenstance of circumstance, if you will. Now, to tie that into Across the Spider-Verse, as we see the end credit scene of the first movie and then the majority of the second one, the spider people now have the webware watches, right? The wrist device that let them jump across dimensions. And because they have the wrist watches, they're able to prevent themselves from glitching. Because like they say in the first movie, glitching is just another way of essentially like slow death, if you will. What does Peter say? Peter says something along the lines of his atoms aren't real jazzed about being in the wrong dimension, right? Presumably, this is only really happening because, let's say, the fabric of space-time, if you will, within a particular universe is only catering towards those entities or beings, etc., that are native to that universe and thus are comprised of the same matter, mass, or just general, reside within that space-time by default. The point is that the universe is imposing that slow but assured death via glitching upon these outside foreign entities. And so the human body analogy comes into play because what happens with the human body when you have contracted a disease or a virus, or there's some kind of foreign entity or some type of bacteria, etc., that invades your body? Well, you get an immune system response, and then you get all different kinds of symptoms, but most importantly, you get white blood cells and antibodies that are trying to attack the invader, right? And so you can consider glitching to be like that. And then afterwards, you have, presumably, if all things go well, the death of the outside invader. And then, at that point, it's all good, like sunshine and rainbows. But what happens to the human body if it's unable to fight the disease? If you've contracted something, you got some kind of bacteria, whatever is running rampant within you, well, it depends on what it is, but more likely than not, if it's unchecked and it goes completely rampant, then the end result is going to be the passing of the human, right? Like, that's it. You're going to get put 6 feet under. And so if the analogy holds true, then you could say the same thing for the universe. If the webware wristwatches are preventing glitching, which is what the universe is doing by default to get rid of the foreign invader, if you will, then the universe itself has no choice but to destabilize, deconstruct, and collapse in on itself because, well, the fabric of space-time doesn't like that shit. And so it's gotta go somewhere. That's an explanation for like what happened with Miguel's universe. And then as a result, we can generally see that the canon event thing isn't really real. In general, I personally don't really think that the canon events thing is real. I feel like it's just a byproduct of common occurrences of Spider-Man, because when you think about it deeply enough, you come to the conclusion that it doesn't really matter how you explain canon events. There are too many inconsistencies with the various ways Spider-Man is written and how Spider-Man is created in a given universe for these canon events to take place. The only exception to that, I guess, would be is if you think that canon events are a more malleable thing that kind of it's like fluid like, and it it molds and changes itself to fit thematically from Spider Person to Spider Person. For example, it's like what Tobey Maguire's Raimi trilogy Spider-Man as opposed to MCU Spider-Man, right? Tom Holland. What are their canon events, right? If you think it's some fluid, amorphous, you know, just constantly changing thing, then I can see how you would probably levy the argument, because you'd be like, oh well, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, his canon events are Uncle Ben, Norman Osborn, and I don't know, his best friend becoming the Goblin, let's say, you know, besides some of the other like generic ones, like oh, the upside down kiss, becoming Spider-Man, testing your abilities, getting bit, etc. But it's like, compare that to somebody like Tom, which is like, what are his canon events? I don't know. I mean, getting bit by the spider. Presumably he also lost Uncle Ben. But specifically in terms of like the on-screen events, it'd be like losing Aunt May, getting exposed by Mysterio, and then I guess maybe being dead for 5 years in Infinity War. Like, what are his canon events? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's such a shaky topic in the grand scheme of things that I don't really feel like Miguel's explanation of what canon events are is just like holy grail to live by or something like that. Miles never wants to see them again. They chose the society over him in that moment. Imagine being Miles, wanting so badly to see your friends again, and then you find out you're the only one excluded from this big club with people like you. Your friends also decided this club was amazing and they would agree to avoid you, especially considering all the lies Gwen tells and the cruel words she says to him in the movie. I'm glad he cut himself out of this toxic group. Peter B is more excusable, but he still should realize his daughter is an anomaly. So I mean, yeah, generally, if you want to say specifically within the context of this moment that Miles' like emotional state has been shattered from everything that happened, then honestly, you can say that, bro. Like, that's perfectly fine and valid. But I don't think that's like a long-standing thing that's gonna happen specifically in the next movie, or like their relationship, or just the terms that they're on is just irreparable. I don't believe in that, to be honest. Like, Miles is definitely gonna, well, first of all, let me explain how I think it's gonna happen, because obviously I think in Beyond the Spider-Verse, the Gwen rescue team, or the rescue force, is gonna, well, first presumably save the man, but after they finish saving the man, she's gonna have to apologize, and probably Peter B too, and probably some of the rest of those guys who feel like they're guilty for not telling him exactly what's going on. They're gonna have to apologize, and Miles is gonna be given the dilemma of accepting or declining based off of how he's feeling and all that stuff. More likely than not, the apology is gonna come after some kind of a conflict, like some major conflict, so that the tension is still a little high, but it's gonna be given a chance, the situation is gonna be given the chance to calm down. And then right when it feels like it's about to calm down, that's when, you know, like Gwen or whoever initiates a conversation about what happened, because you can't just sidestep that shit, like address the elephant in the room. And when that happens, I think Miles is gonna forgive them, bro. Like, it's just within his nature, at least to me anyways. To me, I feel like it's within his nature to forgive them. Especially if the apology is good. Because that's the key. That's the kicker right there. It's gotta be a good, heartfelt, genuine, sincere, you know what I'm saying, down to earth, from the soul, you know, from the depths of my being kind of apology. If they do that, which I think Gwen is gonna do, he's gonna accept, bro. Cause like, we as the viewer, we have the context to understand why everything happened the way it has. Miles really doesn't. But when Miles gets, you know, told in a more calm and rational setting why everything happened the way it did, I mean, seriously, think about it like this. Miles already knows that, or at least based off of the scene that they had, based off of the scene that Miles and Gwen has on top of the clock tower, it's insinuated that Miles knows that Gwen is not on the best terms with her father. But I'm not sure he knows that Gwen has been clinging to the Spider Society as essentially her lifeline. I think that's where the dividing line is, because when she tells him about Hobie while they're in the middle of their swing out in the city together, Miles is, you know, he's confused, he's at a loss for words. He's like, who's Hobie? What does that mean? He lets you stay overnight or what? All of that. Miles, he's just trying to understand what's happening. But later on, when they're having the conversation right before Gwen meets his parents, he's asking about the watch. He's like, you know, this watch, it lets you jump to other dimensions. He's asking questions. He's asking about Miguel, all that other stuff, because he doesn't really have an idea of what it really is like in Spider Society. And so I'm thinking to myself, he's thinking that Gwen and her dad are on bad terms, but not in the sense that like, it's like I can't go back to my universe type of bad. Do you see what I'm saying? In Miles's mind, at least this is what I'm assuming Miles is thinking, is like Miles is thinking school's going probably just decent for Gwen. Being Spider-Woman in her universe is going okay as well. But because of what happened to her best friend and how her father thinks it was her, or specifically her father thinks that it was Spider-Woman, there's a unintentional misunderstanding in the fact that her father loves and hates her, because her father loves Gwen Stacy, his daughter, but her father also hates Spider-Woman because he believes Spider-Woman had ruthlessly killed his daughter's best friend, Peter Parker, without having the context of the fact that Spider-Woman is Gwen Stacy and Spider-Woman unintentionally killed the lizard who happened to be Peter Parker. You see what I'm saying? And so Miles, and to be fair, the bus ride in the first movie gives you the context that Miles already knows that she lost her best friend. But the most key aspects that I'm assuming he doesn't know is the explicit details of how it happened, one, and two, the fact that before she joined Spider Society, Gwen had to she felt forced, like based off of the situation, she felt forced to reveal herself in an attempt to clear the misunderstanding, which happened to only make things worse. Which is why she is clinging to Spider Society like her lifeline, because, well, at least she feels as if she has no choice. She can't go home because she's gonna go home to a universe in which she's unsure if her father even loves her anymore. Her father wants her arrested. She thinks that her father thinks that she's a bloodlusted, wanted vigilante. She has no friends. She has to deal with all these supervillains that are constantly wreaking havoc all over the city, and she's the only one there that can do anything to stop it. And you know, like all these various reasons as to why she just cannot go home, dude. She's just like, dude, my universe is practically a lost cause because of all of the shit that has been going on, right? Like, I feel like he doesn't have any of that context or that knowledge, and I feel like once he gets that knowledge, it'll sort of like dawn a beacon upon him that's like, damn, you feel me? Like, damn, she had her hands tied behind her back. She didn't really have too much of a choice. But with that being said, though, like, I don't think that he's gonna immediately forgive them. They're gonna have to earn it for sure. Because the other thing is, the other argument you could make against like the Gwen rescue force is they should have just took the risk in trying to tell Miles again anyway. But once again, it's kind of covered by the plot and the writing of the movie already, because Gwen says that she didn't know how to tell him, and because she and presumably they, because Peter, you could have did the same shit, but you never came through. It sort of implies that they all just, anyone who knew about this, who was close to Miles, genuinely just did not know how to tell Miles about it. So they were probably planning on just allowing him to be Spider-Man in the confines of his own universe and just let things be. And however it plays out with him being Spider-Man. Because the other thing is, like, from an individual perspective, like, let's say if Miles went on to be Spider-Man in his universe, and like, that's just it. It's just, there's no Spider-Verse from that point forward after the end of the first movie or whatever. It's just Miles in his universe, right? It would kind of invoke some of the same feeling of like the original Raimi trilogy, or like the Taz movies, etc., or like some aspects of the original comics. In the sense that not only the stories revolve around Spider-Man, but especially for those earlier movies, it would imbue what I personally like to call only superhero in the universe syndrome, which is basically, even if the story presides in a continuity that has multiple heroes in it, if the story is like primarily focused or generally just doesn't acknowledge those other superheroes in a tangible fashion, to like, why are they not here, or at the very least attempting to respond, or at the very least being briefed on what's happening in the plot, then the movie, or the medium in general, it exhibits only superhero in the universe syndrome. So once again, for example, the first three Raimi movies, perfect example, because there are minor mentions, minor nods to other heroes. The biggest one I can think of off the top of my head is Doctor Strange in Spider-Man 2, when J. Jonah, he's doing those jokes about Doc Ock, what to call him. But aside from that, Spider-Man for all intents and purposes, is pretty much the only superhero in the universe within that continuity. Because once again, he's the only one that is really responding to these major threats. And yeah, you know, to be fair, all of the major threats happen to be Spider-Man villains, so I guess there's some leeway to argue, oh well, you know, they're focusing on the Spider-Man aspect of that given universe, that particular continuity. But the point that I'm getting at is that as the viewer, you might as well write off the rest of... Anyways, the point that I'm getting at is the Gwen Rescue Force and probably the rest of Spider Society, and especially Miguel, were probably planning on just allowing Miles to just exist as Spider-Man within his continuity, and that's it. Like, so long as nothing else major is going on, destabilizing the multiverse or whatever, somebody that, you know, like Roxxon doesn't try to pop up and revise the old plans and schematics for the super collider and try to start messing with the multiverse again or some bullshit, then sure, Miles can just kind of exist in his own bubble. You know, once again, somewhat similarly to those earlier Raimi movies. But because of the fact that a guy like Spot exists, it became a bit of a non-factor. And because it becomes a non-factor, now we're thinking to ourselves, okay, damn, now we gotta have heightened surveillance. We probably gotta pop in every now and again. And more likely than not, just because I can envision it being in character, Gwen is probably constantly begging somebody within the higher ups of the society, like Jess or whoever, for the chance to go to 1610. Like, are there any missions in 1610? Is there any surveillance that I can do in 1610? Like, can I go to this universe? Can I go to this dimension? Like, can I do stuff here? This, that, and the third, blah, 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 blah. And the reason why is because secretly, like deep down in the background, as we see in the movie, she wants to go see Miles. And why does she have this drive, this ambition to go see Miles that is even greater than somebody like a Peter B? Well, it's simple. She probably is in love with him. It's as simple as that. At the very least, we know she likes him enough to consider him her only real, true made friend after the death of Peter. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm gonna just put it out there. Based off of what we're shown in that flashback, it looked to me like they were on the path of starting a relationship. I'm just saying, like, personally, to me it looked like Peter was into Gwen and Gwen was getting ready to give him a chance. That's what it looked like to me. Like, they went to prom together, or they were gonna go to prom together and stuff. So that's just how it came across to me. And then like tragedy struck because of the lizard and shit. So when she says that, I feel like she's kind of playing down the fact that like Peter was her one, so to speak, and then she lost him and then found Miles afterwards, kind of thing. But that's pretty much how I think it's gonna go. Miles is gonna give that forgiveness, and hopefully they execute this correctly, because Miles and Gwen has been a phenomenally written relationship, I should say, through these first two movies. And if they stick the landing on this third one, boy, this love story gonna be one of the greatest within a 3-movie trilogy I've seen in a while. Will there be answers? Because apparently he's got questions. Oh, tons of questions. Okay, let's see if I can answer these. How did he even come upon such a universe when he was originally just looking for spider people to join the cause, and this universe seemingly had none? Well, to be fair, for this first question, we're kind of given part of Miguel's backstory within the explanation of the tragedy that happened. I presume that Miguel had a family and lost them somehow. Like, let's say, for example, he failed to protect them because of some Spider-Man threat, and he lost his daughter or something like that. And so he's been holding on to this grief in the background all this time. And then when he sees all this stuff going on with the multiverse, like at the end of the first movie, he's looking for spider people to join the cause, but then like in the background or like on the side, he's also checking for universes to see if there's anything that kind of fits the criteria, which you know kind of makes sense. It's like when you think of the multiverse is essentially, it contains infinite possibility, but within all of that infinite possibility, there's presumably an infinite number of universes that are basically just like yours with very minor or slight differences. So probably just look for one that's just like, you know, the one that he's from, and then the only difference being is that he happens to be a dead man or is about to die in that other universe. That's what I assume it is. How long was he observing it for? We have zero way of knowing, so I have no answer for that because there's no way I could possibly know. They'd have to just tell us, commit to something, and then make the timeline make sense. How long was he aware of other Miguel's possible demise? Because it didn't seem that long between his supposed death and replacement. Presumably, well, this kind of ties into that second question. How long was he observing it for? If he happened to stumble across the universe and then like within the next day that other Miguel died, then sure, I can see where he's kind of going with this question, and that it's insinuating the fact that our Miguel might be responsible for his passing because it wasn't untimely, or I guess it would be untimely, however that goes. But generally, like, oh, Miguel is responsible because he's hiding the fact that he basically murked that man off screen so that he could go replace him in that other universe, which is kind of wonky. But you know, but if it was a long, and then on top of it, it couldn't have been too long, because otherwise, how the hell do you expect for me to believe that he died long ago in that universe, but had an active family and then slipped right in to just replace him without anything like raising suspicion, you know? Because if he's a dead man, it should become public knowledge eventually that he's a dead man. So how is he still here? How long was wait, I skipped one. Why didn't he intervene? He was trying to uphold canon at this point. If letting him die was okay / important, then why interfere with the canon by replacing him? This kind of goes on to this kind of touches upon the topic of, it depends on whether or not canon is like a multiverse wide terminology swap for the basic idea of fate, or if it specifically means in relation to the impact it holds on a given Spider-Man, like a given universe's Spider-Man. And reason I say that is because, yeah, the reason why I say that is because we don't know if that other Miguel was Spider-Man or not, right? In other universes, I mean, once again, it's just happenstance of the multiverse. In other universes, different people have different roles or different, you know, outlooks in life. So we don't know if that other Miguel was a regular guy. Maybe he was just happened to be Jack because he goes to the gym, and this Miguel slips in and replaces him because he looks just like him, and he's just hiding the fact that he's Spider-Man. It's just a secret. I don't know. Who knows? it could be the fact that the universe shattered around him in part A because of the whole human body analogy thing, and B, in trying to replace the other Miguel, he is now abandoning his duty entirely as Spider-Man within the context of that particular universe. Who knows? We don't even really know. You know what I'm saying? Because once again, going back to the whole, if canon is just a terminology swap for fate, or if it's its own thing in reference to spider people, I mean, this entire film franchise, the whole film series, it specifically focuses on the Spider-Man aspect of the multiverse. It's the reason why it's called Spider-Verse. So with that logic in mind, maybe, like I said, it's kind of more of a thing of like, hey, you jumped over into this other universe to replace this Miguel and be happy with your family, but in doing so, you essentially violated 3 things. 1, you perpetually left your original universe without a Spider-Man. So, somewhat like Earth 42, it should go to shit. 2, you are permanently residing in a universe that is not your own, and you're not susceptible to glitching because of your wristwatch. So as a result, this universe is now destabilized and you're technically the anomaly. And then 3, because of the prior 2 things, you have abandoned your obligation as in totality as Spider-Man. You're not even trying to be Spider-Man here because you're replacing this other Miguel who didn't happen to be Spider-Man. That last one, this last third one, is, you know, more of a headcanon for what potentially could happen, but you get the idea. It could be any one of those 3. It could be a combination of any 2 of those 3. It could be all 3. I don't know. The only way to find out is when the movie drops. But yeah, how long was the replacement? How long was he planning on keeping it up? Same thing. It's just, I presume the replacement was at least a few months. How long was he planning on keeping it up? Presumably perpetually, because it kind of makes no sense to replace a dead man temporarily. How early was he forewarned about the possible collapse of this reality? The way he explained it, it seemed like it completely blindsided him, so I'm assuming he wasn't forewarned at all, because it was kind of like one of the first canon event, like one of the first major canon event breaks that occurred. When was the rest of Spider Society made aware? Well, based off of the scene, I presume that he made the rest of the Spider Society aware, at the very least, at the first signs of major structural universe collapse. What did he do to attempt to fix it? How did he do more damage? Well, I don't think any more damage could have been particularly done, because like him joining the universe kind of and trying to stay there perpetually probably was the killing blow. In terms of fix it, honestly, I feel like I could probably also argue that he didn't do anything to fix it. I mean, or at least nothing major. Let me revise that. Nothing major. Because sure, he probably, you know, tried to keep people from glitching, maybe give a couple people some, you know, what do they call it, like the day pass watches for Spider Society to keep them from glitching. Or who knows, maybe he had the Spider Society come through with that machine in Mumbattan. We see that machine try to contain that black hole. Maybe he started bringing out some of the technology for that, but otherwise, in my mind at least, the major fix would be to get the hell out of that universe and try to let itself heal. And kind of like he says in the next question, was leaving the universe a possible solution? I presume that was the solution, and he needed to leave, and he couldn't bear to see himself have to leave his daughter, so he chose to take the risk. He's like, fuck it, I'll just stay and see what happens, see if I couldn't save it from the inside. Didn't work. lost his daughter, obliterated the rest of the universe, and then came to the conclusion that canon events cannot be broken, because if you do, then stuff like that happen. Wait, I want to hear this guy's theory. Let's see. I have a possible answer based on the info we have. Spot and Miguel face off in 1610, since both are looking for Miles at the end of Across the Spider-Verse. They fight and the society loses, with Spiders dead like Miles' vision shows. Spot notices Miguel laying in the rubble and taunts him, revealing what happened to Peter's dimension was caused by him powering up via the collider. He also tells Miguel something similar must have happened with his alternate daughter's dimension, but that's for Miguel to find out. He then lets Miguel live to maximize his suffering, leaving him to lay in the pile of his dead allies. This is a large wake-up call for Miguel, and he goes to the HQ to retrieve his white suit. Meanwhile, in Earth 42, Liv is the leader of the Sinister... Okay, Doc Ock, leader of the Sinister Six. And she is revealed to have caused the death of alternate Miguel's dimension and daughter, all to make Miguel believe in canon and destroy the Spider Society for some sadistic reason. This is revealed to her by Miles when they defeat her. Penny then takes Liv's tech and makes new washes for the Spider Gang and Miles G, so that's Earth 42 Miles. They head to 1610B, that's Miles' universe, and mess. After the mess in 42 is dealt with, halfway into the movie, and Miles and Gwen have reconciled. Meanwhile in HQ, Miguel rewatches the recording of Gabriella's death and notices Spot wasn't lying. A power similar to his had indeed destroyed his dimension, and that the similarities in universes is simply the web of life, not canon that must occur. Okay, this is a pretty good theory. Pretty good. Let me see. Spot Miguel face on. The only I like this theory, but the problem that I have with it, do I have a problem with this theory? The problem that I have with it is the part where he kind of movie magic hand waves the explanation of the backstory with Miguel breaking canon. What do you mean by arbitrarily saying he also tells Miguel something similar must have happened to his alternate daughter's dimension, and then like Miguel has to figure that shit out? Because then you go on to say Earth 42 Liv is the leader of the Sinister Six and she caused it. So like, are you saying that she caused the... I guess this guy's saying that Liv caused the destruction of that universe, I guess maybe with a super collider? Maybe that's what post means right here. She's revealed to cause the death of dimension and daughter. Like, use the collider to obliterate that universe. That would work. It could work. The only other problem I would have with this, if that's the case, is bringing back Liv and making it like... Because my problem with this is like Liv wasn't really set up at all in the second film or in Across. So bringing her back for Beyond feels like it might be a bit of an ass pull. All right, let's do just a little bit more scrolling, and I'm gonna go ahead and call it a wrap. Earth 42 Miles. There are a couple of little details I missed in Across the Spider-Verse that will help clear some answers for Beyond. When Spot tells R. Miles that he brought a spider from another dimension, you pause where the spider gets teleported, you can see 42 miles. Yup. I don't like this last part of this theory. Let's see. This makes me believe that the spider escaped and went out to look for our Miles and bite him to complete the canon event. This, I'm assuming he's saying that because he's believing in canon events. Because the problem with this logic is it flies in the face of how anyone can be Spider-Man. He's essentially insinuating that the spider has the level of consciousness and self-awareness to at the very least, I should say, instinctively, if not outright, just consciously look for a particular person to bite, being Miles Morales. That sounds kind of ridiculous. Like the spider happened to be in the area and it bit somebody, and the person happened to be another Miles Morales. That's just how it is, bro. Alright. This paragraph basically just more confirmation of like, oh, our Miles was probably supposed to be Prowler. The thing I can't wrap my head around was when Prowler Miles said, your father, you said he's still alive. I couldn't find a point where our Miles said that to him or Uncle Aaron, that he needed to save his father. What? Wait, what? Hold on. I couldn't find a point where our Miles said to him or Uncle Aaron that he needed to save his father. Might have to pull up that scene real quick and watch it again. Is this gaslighting? Hold on, let me think. How does that whole scene play out? Does he not say when Miles wakes up on the punching bag and he starts pleading to Uncle Aaron, does he not like tell him that he's from a different universe and he got sent there by mistake and he needs to go save his dad or some shit? Oh, you know what? This is irrelevant, actually. Now that I think about it, it doesn't matter either way. And the reason why, wait, let me think. That scene, I'm trying to think of a scene that debunks this, if it's debunkable. When Miles is talking to his mom, what does he say to Uncle Aaron when he gets there? Oh no, he doesn't bring up Jeff at all, I don't think. Okay, I don't know. This might be legitimate, but I have to check it. Who knows? I might make an edit right here and probably put it up on screen if I find something that debunks this. Anyways, last part. My prediction for Beyond the Spider-Verse is that Prowler Miles is still good even though he looks bad. Miles was knocked out. I'm guessing Uncle Aaron and Prowler Miles saw his Spider-Man costume and needed more answers. Because when our Miles is tied up, he is no longer in a jacket and his full costume is exposed. When Prowler Miles walks towards our Miles, you can see he looks at his Spider-Man logo. Then look back at him before he says, why would I do that? I think Prowler Miles doesn't want to hurt our Miles, but wants more information about his universe and figure out about more powers and abilities. Such a dumb title. Thoughts on Gwen being her father's daughter? Let's see. This seems like it might be a bit more serious though. Gwen is her father's daughter. It is both one of her greatest strengths and also one of her greatest weaknesses. gives her a strong belief in right and wrong, and instilled a great desire as well as a huge sense of responsibility to help people and do good by protecting them from the ones that would do them harm. Just like her father, her desire to protect the person she cared about the most ended up hurting them instead. Like her father, it led to her siding with the system over the person she cares about the most in an attempt to capture and arrest them for the greater good, resulting in her doing much the same thing to Miles as her father did to her. And just like her, Miles cuts ties and escapes, causing her to reevaluate her actions and begin to question the system itself. And just like her father, in the end, she rejects that system in favor of the one she... Right, and so via this logic, just like her father, she's gonna reconnect with one of the people that she loves the most in this world, aka Miles. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's pretty much set in stone, bro. I don't know what's up with people who feel like this is not gonna happen, but it's definitely gonna happen. All right, y'all boys. I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it for now. It was fun, and I'll be super down to do this again, especially when we closer to the next movie. Cause, ooh wee boy, this next one, it might in fact be peak. I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. Like the vid if y'all like the vid, and let me know in the comments below what are your thoughts on Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, this vid, the Reddit, etc. And sub to the channel if you rock with the content, and I'll see y'all in the next one.